Welcome to the Intentional Awakening Podcast with your hosts, Kathy Brewer and Terry Huberman.
Hey there, I'm Terry Huberman, one of the amazing hostesses of this fantastic podcast, Intentional Awakening Podcast.
And I am Kathy Gruber, and we are excited to have you for one of our early episodes. So thank you for diving in. Thank you for joining us. So I don't know about all of you watching or listening. Since I was a kid, I was very sensitive to other people's energies. I had trouble being at places like the mall or crowded parades. Parades would make me cry for some reason, even as a little kid, and I never understood that. I would like watch races and stuff like that, and I would cry at the finish line as people were crossing. And I remember people saying, like, why are you emotional about this? And I'm like, I don't know. And what you need to know about the Groovers and the Groover curse, part of the Groover curse is we get blotchy when we cry. So there was no mistaking that I had been sobbing about something that was happening. I mean, I look like I had some really horrible disease. And I didn't realize a couple things. I didn't realize that not everybody felt this stuff. How
Yeah,
would you know? And I didn't realize that it was a gift.
right.
Can sometimes be looked at as a curse. And I didn't know what to do about it. And I mentioned in the first episode that like I would sit in play practice and I would take on other people's headaches. When I massaged people, I would get their pain and they would feel better. Um, my mom was very sick for about 10 years before she passed away when I was 18. She had horrible pain. And I remember sitting in my room one night and I had my little secret box of like, the one crystal I had and like this deck of tarot cards I think I made because where am I going to get them? Um, and I stared at a picture of her and I sat in my room that night and I consciously tried to take her pain.
Wow.
I was probably 12 or 13. So the fact that I even thought to do this, I now look back as an adult and go, oh my God, that's like,
Yeah.
wow. And I was able to do it and I didn't sleep. I was in horrible pain all night. And I thought that can't be real. That didn't happen. And I wake up the next morning and I look like hell, right? Because I've had her pain all night. And I said, how did you sleep? And she goes, wow. She goes, I had the best night's sleep. Like my back felt great. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But I also recognized that was nothing I could sustain. So I have found ways to tamp that down so that it is not as open as it is. I don't suck up everybody's stuff anymore, as I know is a big challenge for people who are empaths. So today, for those at home, if you don't know about empaths and empathic people, we'll inform you about that. And if you are one, we're going to give you some tips for not sucking up everybody's stuff. So
For
welcome
sure.
to the episode on empaths.
Welcome to, to the world of empaths. So it's really interesting because the way energy works is energy influences energy. So when you have someone who is highly sensitive and empathic, I mean, they're working really well. So if you ask me, an empath is chef's kiss working really well because scientifically everything's working perfectly because you
Mm.
have all these subatomic particles that are moving in certain paces, certain patterns, right? That's what energy is, really. If we take the woo out of it, it's science, right? Ooh, we just brought down the woo
The
meter.
scale of woo just went down.
Oh,
Okay, we got science into this. Great. I love bringing the science into this because it does. You start to talk about, oh, I feel other people's feelings and I can take other people's pain. And the very linear, is it right
yeah,
brain people are like, that's BS. It doesn't happen. You're making that up. No, believe me, I've lived it for a very
yeah,
long time.
yeah. So when you are an empath and you are highly sensitive, your energy, let's just say, is very also impactful in that it's influencing other
Mm,
energy as well. So there's always the nature of energy is to always be moving, ebb and flow, ebb and flow. So you're receiving and you're giving, you're receiving and you're giving. When you're an empath, you're receiving more, let's just say, and then your brain, based on how high of a frequency or the vibration of the energy, is going to detect it.
mm.
And if the brain can detect that energy, it means that your senses are going to be heightened. And it also means that you're going to feel it in your body.
That
So
does explain it. Yes.
so that explains, when you're intentional, like, so for example, when you were saying you wanted to take your mom's energy away or the pain away, you were very intentional that that's what I
Hmm.
was. So you were actually taking control and managing your energy very intentionally. So it was very focused,
Yep.
right? So that meant you were actually controlling your energy, right? But that's also because you knew you had a sensitivity to it. So you basically just steered it, which was great, right? So a lot of the times as an empath, it's not intentional though. So you're receiving all of this, but if you understand that what you might be experiencing may not be yours because you have high sensitivities, you can actually learn to manage it better. And sometimes you actually want to, this is going to sound really witchy, but sometimes you want to manipulate energy, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't, right? So,
It's so interesting that you say that because I've realized that there were times that I felt anxious about something and I'm like, I'm not anxious. Like, why is this? And I realized it was, I remember so specifically, I was heading for knee surgery and I was in the car with my now ex-husband and I was feeling fine. I love my doctor. I had meditated. I did hypnosis. I was so ready for this meniscus surgery. And then about halfway to the doctor, I started having this almost panic attack. And I'm like, why am I suddenly feeling so? And I look over, my husband was freaking out. He was so nervous about my surgery. And I'm like, dude, you need to fucking settle down because I'm feeling all of this and it's upsetting me. And
yeah,
so I had to separate our energies,
right.
which now once I learned to do it, I could. And one of the tips I found was repeat my own name.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And it would remind me I'm Kathy. I have Kathy's energy right now. His does not need to affect me. So
Yeah,
that was one tip I found was saying your own name. And then of course there's always the visualize yourself in white light,
sure.
zip it up kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, for me, because I knew that I was this way, I would say, is this mine or is this not mine? Right. So I had this awareness, this might not be
Hmm.
mine. So as soon as I would say, is this mine or not mine, the energy would either stay if it was mine or it would neutralize if it wasn't mine because I was giving it energy. And that's actually a
Mm,
very intentional thing. So for you to say your name, my name is Kathy, my name is Kathy, is very intentional, right? So you're taking control
yep.
of the situation. So just like me, it would be very intentional. Is this mine or not mine? And part of manipulation of energy is when you give something attention, this is called the slit theory. If you give something attention, it can actually go away. So if you're meeting this feeling by greeting it with, are you mine or not mine? If it's not yours, it's going to go away. But if it's yours, it's
Mm,
going to stay. And then from there, you can learn and know, well, what do I do with this? Right. So I love what you're saying because it's the same thing that I'm saying. It's like, well, let's address the issue,
yep.
right?
Yep.
So a lot, the way when I'm working with my clients, a lot of the way that I explain a lot of this is that there's a psychological perspective, right? Which involves like the mental, and then there's
Mm,
the emotional perspective, which involves the energetic, right? And both of those will lead or energetically, it drops down, but it will go into the physical. So then it'll
right.
show up like physically or in your reality, right? So when we're dealing with all of this as being an empath, we're touching on all parts of that, right? So it's like, how do we holistically bring this all together so that we can manage this? Because it's
Right.
really a challenge to live your life as an empath, taking in everything.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. And I've had so many, because I have a chapter in one of my books on being an empath. I wrote an article for Massage Magazine about being an empath because so many of us empaths head towards healing, helping.
Yeah.
Gabor Mate would say it's because we need to feel like we're worthy, so we go fix other people, which, might be part of it. But, it can be so overwhelming. And I found myself not getting sick, but when I walk out of the massage and I've got all their pain and they feel great, that is not the way that you want to work.
No.
And I've seen so many people who were sensitive put on more and more weight. There's that sort of stereotypical, like really heavy psychic lady, because they're trying to pad themselves. They're trying to insulate themselves from that energy. I literally had this conversation with a client the other day. She's a mystic and she keeps putting on more and more weight. And she's so unhappy with the fact that her body feels the way it does. So we're working to help her figure out how to separate out that energy. And to be honest, there are times where I've wanted to take that energy from people. I've had clients who were dying, and wow, I remember this woman, she turned to me and she said, Kathy, I know this is really hard for you, but would you mind taking some of my pain so that I'm more comfortable? And I went, yep, absolutely. And I cleared the rest of my day and I sat there and I took a lot of her pain. And then for the next day or two, I felt like absolute crap, but she was dying. I wanted to give her relief. I had, when my guinea pig Listo passed away, I held him in my hands and I felt him dying through me. And at one point, my husband Eric came and he went to put his hand on me, and I went, Don't do that," because I don't know what that would do. I didn't know what that would do. Would he feel it? He's not trained to feel it. I don't want him to feel what I feel. There's been times where he's tried to take my pain. Like he'll put his hands on me and close his eyes, and I'll look at him and I'll go, "Are you trying to take my pain?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, don't do that." Like, I don't know if he can, but
Yeah.
he's tried, which is so incredibly, like, amazingly sweet. And I wouldn't curse anybody with this
No way.
situation.
No way.
I
But
also don't know if he'd be able to do it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't know if you can teach someone to be empathetic, but I don't know if you can teach someone to be an empath. Because sympathy and empathy, they're similar, but they're not the same. But I also have to tell you that I truly do also believe that empathy, like being an empath, you also as a human, so this is the human side. Um, I feel like, and I think just because I'm also trauma informed and all of my
mm,
training and all of that, that it's a coping skill and it's a coping mechanism, right? So it's one of the survival responses of fawning,
yep,
which is people pleasing too. So you're always anticipating other people's needs, which can be good and bad. It's like, how are you anticipating somebody's need, right? Are you doing it on alert, or are you feeling safe within yourself that you want to
hmm
actually help?
yep,
So there's that. So that's why I was talking about there's the mental and then the psychological and all that. So you'll find that empaths probably make incredible employees because they're always
oh,
anticipating what the business might need or what your boss might need or your client might need. And they're so on top of things. And I
yep,
think a lot of people focus so much on I don't want to say negative, but the challenging parts of being an empath. And I
right,
think we need to start also looking at how it's a superpower, again, to neutralize how, the perspective
yep,
of what an empath is. So, when it comes down to it, it's you have a very highly sensitive person who
hmm
just operates literally. I think they operate on a different level.
yep,
And, there's a science to this as well as, metaphysical aspects as well. And it can
yep,
be a blessing or a curse.
yep.
And I
And I'm just
go
good.
ahead.
Well, I was just realizing it's like we're just about to hit our time, and there's so much more to talk about this. I just wrote down 3 notes about empathic beings that we can talk about. So let's do this. We're going to end this episode. And next time, we're going to talk about the empath and the narcissist,
Ooh,
because that's a
yeah.
thing. We're going to talk about people using being an empath as a badge of honor, because I've heard people show off the fact that they can do this. Not the place to do that. And then also protection. So we talked about saying your own name, questioning, is this mine or not, and how sometimes that energy shifts. So we'll go over in the next episode a bunch of different ways that we can protect ourselves from that energy and make sure we're staying safe and healthy. So I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygruver.coach.
And I'm Terrie Huberman. You can find me at terriehuberman.com.
And we're all over social media.
Oh, yes. You can find us. We make ourselves very available to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Intentional Awakening Podcast, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.